Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another lecture of ours. As you remember, I'm Zishan. One thing I forgot to mention was an intro about myself. I did put something out there on the blackboard, but this is I'm teaching this. I do have another class that I teach. That one is called Intro to C and Unix. This one C++, and interestingly enough, C++ was the first language that I ever studied in college. So I always had a liking for this language, and I was able to build on top of it. And I still remember up till this day. I mean, you ask me to write something in C++, I'll be able to write it fairly quickly. And the logic, everything that I studied, I'm still using up till this day in terms of algorithms, classes, arrays, standard libraries, hello world, etc. So I went to University of Wisconsin, graduated several years ago. Got an undergrad and got my master's. And my initial, when our class was CS 252. I still remember this number up till this very day. And when I started taking C++, I absolutely fell in love with it. And I wanted to make a career out of programming language. Initially, I thought I was going to do a PhD, but I ended up getting a job out in the field, and then PhD was left behind. I didn't even start it. I applied for it and I got accepted, but nonetheless, I started working out in the field, and it's been 16, 17 years, over 16 years now, and I do enjoy it. So from a professional standpoint, um, I work as a manager for software development at a private company called Wheels, and I've been there for 5.5 years, going on six. So I enjoy what I do. So I manage a team of software developers. I used to be one in the past, but now I manage a team. So like I said, what I learned in my C++ days, I still use up till this day because at some point, if you're gonna go the academic route or you're gonna go out in the industry and work, you're gonna need to know these basics. So it's really important, and I cannot stress how important this class is. So give it your best. Um, and after you've given it your best and you still don't get it, then you can tell yourself that you did try your best. And I'm always there to help you. It's an online class, and I know there are certain challenges with it, but keep chugging along, and you'll find things making more and more sense as we get more into the class. Hopefully, you saw the last lecture, which was about setting up your laptop to be able to, write programs, submit them, etc. So I'll start off with basic, some this will be a repeat information from the last class, but I think it's going to be important because you'll see me install Putty and use it. I'm a Windows user, so I'm going to use Putty. So all I did was, I went to google.com, type in Putty. The first link that comes up, I click on that, download Putty. You can download from here. I go over there, and I use this first one, x86, not the ARM. There's a slight difference. You can Google what the difference is, but I use this one. So I'll click on it, it's downloaded, and all I do is I go to my downloads. I did install it already, so if I do this, you'll see putty.exe. So I double click on it, and the host name, oh, one thing you ought to do, so you'll see all these options. Go to SSH, X11, enable X11 forwarding. Okay, go back to your session, and the host name that you ought to be using is aries.harpercollege.edu. And then you can save it. I have one saved right here, but I typed it in just so you know. Click on open. It'll open this right here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is like my login is this. Okay, watch what happens. M Azhar at aries.harpercollege.edu. And I'll try to enter in the password that I use for my email. So you enter your login, you'll get this. I enter the password. Access denied. Well, the credentials for this account aren't the same as your as the other one, as your password. So first of all, what I have to do is, besides that, I need to take out at aries.harpercollege.edu. I'm gonna close this again and then try to reopen it. And downloads again. And go to. I saved it last time. I'm gonna use the same one. First thing I will do, I will only type in my login name. Okay? Get anything after the at, you don't have to add it. Hit enter. Okay. Now I'm in. As I was typing the password, you notice that nothing was coming up. It's fine. That's there for security purposes, so it's not going to show you the cursor moving. And I'm in finally. But one thing to keep in mind is if you're unable to log in, go to tech support. Call this number right here or this email. I actually had to email them myself because my login credentials were not working. So they reset my password for me. So you might have to do that. So now that I'm in, and this is a Unix environment, and if you want to know the basics of Unix, you can look up the tutorial. But the most important command in Unix that you're going to be using forever is what's called man. Man tells you everything. Man is like the Google of Unix, if you can think of it. Like if you want to look up a command, you see someone, you see people type in pwd. You do man pwd. So it tells you what that command is for. So and if you want to know anything about any command, etc., um, you would type in man and then the command name. I use another command ls, man ls, list directory contents, okay? Um, so there's ls, there's so many other commands. You'll get more and more comfortable in the Unix environment. I'm not going to cover a whole lot into it. Maybe in the next class I'll cover some Unix commands that I typically use and I'll share it with you so it helps you out on the topic. So PWD gives you the current working directory that I'm in. So I'm in home/faculty/mother. CD space will get you a directory up. Okay, PWD. Okay, I'm in home. Go on there, level up. PWD. Okay, you're at the root. Can you go above the root? No, you cannot because that's where you're at. Then if you really want to go back to that directory, home fac making faculty, or is it, what was it at? Other. Okay, and ls gives you the list of commands. You'll see a test.cpp because I was playing around with C++ earlier. Um, so one thing you should be knowing is there are different editors in Unix. There is Pico, there is Emacs, thing in some people what NEdit, some people use that too. I'll use VI. So the first thing I'm gonna do is help you guys with the Hello World program. Okay, that was the first thing I ever started off with. Anything you learn in a programming language, is the first program is Hello World. So let's come up with a name of. I have test.cpp. I'll call the test1.cpp. VI is the editor. Test1.cpp. Okay. It'll open up a brand new file. It's going to take a second or two. So what should I do? I will use you using namespace std. The next is include. So pound include, it gives you the standard libraries that you can include. And in brackets, you'll put in the name of the file. I'm including iOS stream. I should say iOS. iOS stream is input output stream. So commands related to input and output, those are provided for you. Now, if this were a C class, you wouldn't have this library. The input and output are slightly more complicated, but C++, as we said in the first class, is built on C, so it has everything that C has and a lot more. Watch this. I'll do int main, open parentheses, close parentheses. Now, what is int main? Int main, int stands for integer. Main is the main program. So every C++ program, um, the main controller, the main program, it has this keyword main. So if once we get further along, you will see, classes getting created, objects, etc. But you'll always have a main program that controls everything. Um, so that's why the name main. And int just says that this method is going to return an integer. Okay, open parentheses, close parentheses. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll just start off with the last statement. Okay, I just have this habit that anytime I write a method, I have the open and close parentheses, and then I have the return. Um, Now, as we get more, and I don't know if you'll see examples, but I've seen examples, and I might get into it, is when you have main actually returning something. But not in this case. For majority of the cases we're going to see, the main program is not going to return anything. You can say return one, two, whatever, but return zero is the standard. So, and then the end of every command in the main must have a semicolon. Okay, so now let's do this. stdcout. I'm using that namespace std that I previously declared. And cout is output to the stream. Hello world slash n is a new line character. And notice here that I do have a semicolon. Every command ends with a semicolon, right? There are some exceptions to it. The beginning of the method doesn't have it, right? You don't see a semicolon here. You don't see a semicolon here in the main. But for all practical purposes, everything will have a semicolon at the end. The includes as well don't have a semicolon. Um, as we get further along, you'll see more and more includes here. So that's your first program. And the way you exit out of VI is I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to hit control best WQ. Okay. So now, oops, ls. Okay, so you see test1.cpp, and .cpp actually denotes the extension that it's a C++ file. So that's why um, I gave it the extension of C++. Now, the next thing you want to do. So you've written a program. What's the next thing you're going to do? You're going to compile it. Okay. So you use uppercase C++ space test1 dot. Oh, hold on. Let's do this. This might help. So I'm going to remove this semicolon. Okay, and then I have WQ. Okay, so let's try that again. Oh, as I'm doing up and down cursor, it remembers the commands that I previously typed. So I typically do this. I use the up cursor or the down cursor, so I have to retype everything again. I'm gonna do C++ test1.cpp. Oops, there is an error. So notice here, tried compiling it, test1.cpp in function int main. That's the line number, and that's the column number 30. I just look at the line number and then I go, error, expected semicolon before return. So I missed out the semicolon. Remember I was stressing on the fact that everything must have a semicolon, but in this case there wasn't. Let's go back into VI. Okay, so in here we'll type in click I, so it gives me the insert mode, semicolon. Okay, hit escape, hit WQ, hit enter. Okay, so now I saved it. Let me try to compile it again. I'm going to do up, down, CPP test 1. Okay, no compilation errors. And you'll in future you'll get to learn what's a compilation error, what's a runtime error, but compilation errors are just that. When as soon as you run the compiler, it tells you if there's any syntax error, yes or no. And the next, so now that I've written a program, hello world, I need to run it. And the way to do it is dot slash test1 dot cpp. Permission denied. Oh, not CPP. I'm sorry. It should be the out. If you noticed, once I ran that, let me do an ls. You saw test1.out. Out is the output file. So I do. See? Hello world. Okay. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to go about writing the hello world program. Now let me go ahead and modify this same program. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to output hello world, and I'm going to ask the user to enter in a number, which is going to be an integer, and then I'm going to output that same number. Okay, so let's do this. std cout, please enter a number. I'm not going to have a whole lot of error handling in here, but so here's that semicolon, and let's have a integer int. It's actually int. Let's call it user entered value. Initialize it to 0. We're going to learn about initializing later on. Let's do this std. Oh yes. Next thing I have to do is input that number. So I asked user to enter a number std. Cin is take it in. Now notice these, they're the other way. I'm going to use user entered value. Okay. So in this line, what I have done is I ask the user to enter a number, and then I do cin, input stream. I read in what the user has entered into this user entered value. Okay, and then I'm gonna output that same number. User enter value was, okay, let me put a slash and a new slash n is just a new line character. Okay, was let's do this std or oh, okay. Let's see. Do I notice any compilation errors in here? I don't see it, but we'll have the compiler tell me yeah or nay to this program. So I've got cout hello world and please enter a number, take in the user entered value, then cout user entered value was this. Okay, so now escape, get out of WQ, and run the CPP on this guy. Okay, it passed. Now let's try to run it. Welcome. Keep saying welcome. It's test1 dot out, right? Please enter a number 12. See that? User entered value was 12. And you see the new line character in here, or the line break as you call it, whatever you call it, user. But one thing that you notice here is it says user entered value was 12, whatever I entered, and then there's no line break, right? So I told you the slash n is the line break. Let's go and add that in there and see what happens. I don't want to compile it. vi test1.cpp. Now I can do this. Okay, that's the new line character that I just added. Escape, colon, WQ, CPP, let's run it. Test1.out, please enter a value, 32. Now you see, now there is a new line character. And like I said, there's no error handling, etc. So I could have done this. Try this, right? Please enter a number. I didn't enter anything. It's probably just going to sit there till I enter in 5. I'm just going to say 5. And you can try other things like I keep doing this and I enter in T, right? It didn't recognize T. T is not an integer. Later on, you will learn the different types of integer, string, character, etc. But for now, integer are basically numbers. Okay. You know, one of the things I forgot to show you guys is what happens, how do we go about dealing with errors, okay? So let's say if I'm opening this file up again. This time, what I'm going to do is, should have done this maybe earlier on, is let's say I remove a semicolon, right? Oh, you know what? Let me make this small again. Escape I to edit, backspace, okay, escape. So I've taken out a semicolon, and then I'm going to show you how it behaves. So test1.cpp. See now notice it gave me an error. It says line 9 and 32 is a column number. I typically don't look at the column number as long as I know the line number. I can figure out. And then what happens is a lot of the times you'll see issue after that line, but if you focus on the very first one, you can pinpoint the problem. Um, me go back to this, open that up. Okay, I'll I for edit, insert, okay, escape. Okay, so I put in the semicolon there. Oops. Okay. Now let me try to compile again. CPP. Okay, it's working again. Mm, Now the other thing that I wanted to cover was the some of the operators. I mean, pl addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, etc. So I'm gonna manipulate this program to take in two numbers and to add them up. Okay, so let's go back to this program, test1.cpp. Now notice that I'm building on top of what I had already. User entered value 1. All right, let's call escape I, call it 1. And then I have int user enter value 2. I'll initialize that to 0. 2 is just a good habit to initialize your variables. And as you get more advanced in programming language in C++ or any other language, you'll know the importance of initialization. Um, Please enter a number. Let's do this. Let's ask the user to enter. Please enter another number. Okay, so we ask the user to enter in another number. Now, if you recall, what are we going to do? You probably guessed it, CIN. We input that number, user entered value 2. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I've got two values, right? User entered value 1 and 2. Now let's do this. You know, Let me make it slightly easier. I'll have another variable to hold the sum of these two integers. Okay, equal to 0. The sum equals user entered value 1 plus user entered value 2. Okay, so then let me just output what I've got. Cout the sum. Let me just put a new line in there just in case. The sum of the two numbers is, okay, let's do this, is sum, right? And hopefully I didn't make any syntax error in here. Let me just go over this. Sum, user entered value 1, user entered value 2, Cout, okay, it's good. Escape, WQ. Sorry, oh, the cursor wasn't placed here. I escape, control, or shift, WQ. Okay, now let's do this. I did make a mistake. It was not declared. Ah, okay. I see. I should have entered, just There's no number next to user entered value. So let's go back, fix that. I was able to see the variable name and figure out what I missed. So go back in here. This is the one. That should have been one. Okay. Escape. Control. C. Okay. Test1.cpp should be out. Sorry about that. Enter 10, 20, right? The sum of two numbers is, as you can see here, 30. I forgot to enter in a new line character. Let's fix that also so it's a little bit more readable. And notice here, whatever I need to output on the screen, I put this in between, right? Cout starts off with this. I put this here again, and then sum followed by this, followed by the new line character. Some of you might be following this very easily, and some of you might be finding it hard to follow what I'm doing. But take your time, nothing to worry about it. Play around um, in your own account when you have time, and you'll get more comfortable as time goes on. Okay, let's see. Shift WQ. Let's try it once again. Okay, CPP, test one. Let's just test one dot out. Okay, number one, number two. The sum of two numbers is three. There you have it. So probably going to give you the first assignment, something similar to this, to perform some sort of mathematical operation between two integers. Um, so you can use that. Use this as an example to answer that question. So hopefully you found this interesting enough and you're able to follow through. Um, I'll post another lecture later on talking about um, a different items from a different chapter, but this is majority of chapter two. Okay, so this was these are some simple examples of hello world, input and output, adding integers, etc. Chapter 2 does talk about some other equal to, greater to, not equal to, less than, etc. When comparing numbers. So make sure you walk through those examples and play around because those are really useful and handy, and you'll be using them very often. So if you're comparing two numbers, x is greater than y, x is less than y, x is equal to y, x is not equal to y, etc. So there are some examples in the book as well. So make sure you read all of chapter two. So this will really prepare you um, for your assignment. Thank you, and have yourself a great day. Peace.